Today we will continue our discussion of React Native and look again at React Native navigation. In the previous video, we looked at the Stack Navigator, and we used the Stack Navigator to create a navigation stack, right? In this video, what I'd like to do is look at the Tab Navigator and create a tab navigation. So here I am at our lesson page, and we should be on lesson number 10. So I'm going to click on lesson 10 and go to the lesson page. So you can go through the lesson here and follow the video. So the video is just going to follow the lesson here. I have the completed example here, and maybe we'll do a little bit more with this in the video, but this is basically what we're going to make. So we have an Expo app that has two screens, and we can navigate between the two screens by clicking on one of these tabs down here. So I have a home screen and a settings screen, okay? And then within each of these screens, you can do anything you want. You could put a list view. You could actually put a whole stack navigator in, any one of these screens. But the tab navigator lets us switch between those views. And normally, like, the tabs are used as kind of like a little mini app within an app. So anything that happens in this tab is kind of like its own, sub application to the overall application. Okay. So in other words, the things that you do in the home tab don't carry over to the other tabs. They might be shared, but they don't navigate between the two. So you might set your home settings here, and some of those settings may affect what happens here, but there's nothing here that would allow us to navigate to this other tab, okay? So let's get started. I am going to close the simulator there, and I'm going to begin with a brand new Expo app. Let me quit my old Expo app here and navigate to a new folder. I think what I'm going to do is I have that previous app right here. I'm going to close it, and I have it in this folder here. I'm going to call this example 1 there. So that way I just have a different name for it. And let's create a brand new tabbed application. So I'm going to copy the code here and paste it into my terminal. And it will ask me to create an app from a template. And you can use the blank template, or you should use the blank template. We won't be using TypeScript. They give us a tabbed app, and you can use that. And I think that this is okay if you already understand how the tabs work. But if you don't understand how the tabs work, this one is pretty confusing because there's actually a lot of extra template code. So for this example, we're going to start with the blank app and just build the tabs from scratch, okay? So I'll hit return, and then it'll take a moment to install. And while that installs, let's talk about what we need to do next. So we'll need to cd into our tabbed example, and then we're going to import the React navigation dependencies that we need, right? So just like with the Stack Navigator, where we needed to import the Stack navigation dependencies, we're going to have to import the tab navigation dependencies here, okay? Oh, great. So here we are. So now we can cd into the tabbed example. And you can test your app too by running yarn start. Maybe at this point is probably a good idea, just to make sure the app is running. And then maybe I'll open this in the simulator. And any moment. Oh, great. So there's our app, right? So everything's running and we know it's all working, right? Okay, so our next step is to import the dependencies that we'll need. So I'm in this install dependencies section. I'm going to go get React Navigation Native. Let me quit here and install these dependencies. And then we're going to install these dependencies down here. Okay, so a quick note here is that Some of the dependencies you'll notice were installed with npm, and then others were installed with Expo. And that's because the Expo app is kind of a shell, and our React Native code is getting it plugged into that shell, right? And so it needs to be aware of some of the dependencies. So this is a little bit of a different process than a web project where you just do you install all the dependencies with npm, right? So let's get our Expo dependencies here. And this is just the basic React Native stuff that we need, right? So after that's done installing, we are going to install the tab navigator, okay? And so this is for the bottom tabs, and I guess they have a top tabs also. I don't know. I haven't used that one, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to copy this code here, and then this is the last set of dependencies that we need. So I'll get this guy. Okay, great. And if everything's working, we should be able to run the app again. I'm going to clear all that and then run yarn start again. And if the app was running, I find that sometimes I need to refresh the app. It says success there. I'm not sure that it loaded. Just to make sure, I'm going to go to Shake over here on the menu, device menu, and then choose reload. And that'll be sure that it's loading the current version of our app. Okay. Oops, let me close that. That was the previous one. And I'm going to open up the tab navigator here, or the tab navigation app in my code editor. Okay, so now we're in a good place to work, okay? So the next block of code we're going to add is going to go into app.js, okay? So I'm going to navigate to app.js, and maybe I can close that thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the code here, right? So I have this big block of code right here, and this just can replace everything in app.js, okay? The code that I have here actually came from the React Navigation tab navigation example, right? So I just borrowed their minimal example tab based, okay? And we'll make a few changes to this, but I basically started with the code here. So you can get the code here if you like, and you can read up on the tab navigation. They have some more information here, okay? So that's where I started, right? So I just started there and I borrowed their code, right? And the code here is pretty good. It's pretty basic though, right? So let me hold on. It's hard to copy this. Maybe I should just click the button. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to click the copy button. And then I'm just going to replace everything in app.js with that code, okay? And now we have our tab navigator. So there should be a tab bar at the bottom with two tabs, home and settings. It's hard to read the text here. It's pretty small on the screen, but this one says home, that one says settings. And then there's two screens. So one screen says settings and the other screen says home in the middle. And if I look at the code here, we can walk through it, right? So we imported React, we imported text and view, and then we imported the navigation container from React Navigation Native, right? And then we imported the create bottom tab navigator. So this is kind of like the create stack navigator with the stack navigator, except we're creating a tab navigator with tabs on the bottom, okay? Next, there's a component here that represents the home screen view. So that's the view that we're seeing here right now. And below that, I have another view or another component that represents the settings screen view. So when I click on the settings tab, we see the settings view here, okay? And then below that, I created a new tab navigator. So I said create bottom tab navigator, and this returns the tab to us, okay? And from there, I've created this very similar setup to the stack navigator, I said, you know, tab.navigator here, oops, right? And then I wrapped my two screens, the two tab screens inside this tab navigator. So the tab navigator determines which one of these is visible. So we say tab.screen, and then we give it a name, and then we give it a component to render. So the component is here. So this is the home screen component that we have above, and this is the settings screen component that we have right here. Okay? So there you go. If you got this far, then I have a challenge for you. Okay? So the challenge is this. Currently, this is not best practice, right? What we'd like to do is separate these two components into their own file. Okay, so move the home screen into its own file, move settings screen into its own file, include the dependencies that that each of these requires, and then export those components from that file, import the two components here and use them here. Okay, so that's challenge number one. And then challenge number two is to modify the home screen and the settings screen, and that'll make it easier for us to tell them apart. Okay, so and then it'll be fun too, right? So you can give you something to do creative. So modify the home screen and the settings screen, and you can do that by adding more text. You can add another view. You can add a style sheet with some more styles, right? So you can style it however you want, so they both look different. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that challenge, and then we'll pick this up in the next video. Okay, and again, as always, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.